Te reo ererangi o te mānia. This episode was produced in Otatahi by Plains Media, with support from New Zealand On Air.
Today, the oceans hold their breath as we journey into Ringlet and the Day the Oceans Stop, by Felicity Williams, published by Ahoy, an imprint of the Cuba Press in 2019. Join Libby as waves of mystery, courage and wonder sweep us into an unforgettable adventure. What happens will be dazzlingly sparkly. As thoughts went, it was over the top and perfect. Because I like sparkly things. And I'll know when I've got there. And when I do get there, I want a magnificent pathway stretching out forever. She could see it in her mind's eye. She added some glow-in-the-dark pearls in case she had to travel at night. A pathway meant a journey, and any journey she took would be in the direction of home, wherever that was. And there will be others like me. Because I'd like some friends, she thought. I'd like some fun, and I'm overdue for gossip. The great thing about a spring-cleaned mind was that you could choose what to put into it. And while we're on the subject of me, a mirror to see me in, because appearances matter when you're a princess. She could see the top of the canopy now. More glassy stalactites, more nets flung like gossamer, vapours skidding around as if in some disorganised race. They did not bother her. Her head was full of her own thoughts. Well, mostly, she could feel, how did you know it was my birthday? Hiding in a corner. You could never have too many parties. She would let it stay. Yoink. Rush. Rush. She slipped out of the thought sludge, pulling Isky with her. She was sure that, take a chance, was only a few more tugs on the rope away, and that see what happens would be brimming with possibilities. Crevice du Jour was the most famous restaurant in all of Oceania, but this early in the morning it was deserted. Chignon floated in the foyer. She had dinged the bell once, and she was getting impatient. Not that she would dare show it. She was far too polite, far too nice, and far too nervous. Besides, Madame had told her that uncontrolled outbursts of emotions give you warts, and not ordinary warts that you could disguise with a pretty bow, but giant oozy ones that told everyone you were emotionally unstable. With Derby Day around the corner, sea folk could be arriving to take part in the races and have fun at the carnival. Warts were the last things Chignon wanted, so she swallowed down the impatience and turned her lip upwards. So she appeared to be smiling, at least on the outside. Summoning all her courage, she dinged the bell a second time. Chignon noticed 2 jellyfish sucking up the food scraps from last night's meal. As their tentacles swept back and forth, she floated cautiously out of their reach. She did not want to be mistaken for food, and have a wedge of her tail ingested. Thank you very much. After another ding, her smile wore off. She didn't have time to wait. Her to-do-or-die list was the longest it had ever been, and even though she did her best to get the jobs ticked off, it never got any shorter. Chignon knew that Madame would be extremely displeased if she did not stay on schedule. As she reached a fourth time for the bell, she was knocked to one side with a swoosh of water, and there in front of her was a large speckled trout. It was the chef. "The restaurant's not open yet," he said. 3 bubbles shot out behind the woods like a miniature volley of artillery. Shin-yon forced the smile back onto her face. "I'm here to double-check that the usual spot, the one with the view onto the promenade, is reserved as previously requested." The chef looked irritated and flung out his fin. He comes straight from the kitchen where an entire community of whelks was stirring huge vats of fragrant sea lettuce for tonight's meals. Whelks were obedient little creatures, but they got carried away with the pepper pot the moment your back was turned. "Come back another time." "No, please. I need to make sure that Madame gets what Madame wants, or..." There was a clutter from the kitchen and a sneeze. The chef felt his whiskers stiffen. Shin-yon moved into the restaurant. "Have the seats been reupholstered, as Madame demanded? Requested?" she asked. "Has the music..." "The music?" asked the chef. "The upholstery?" A jellyfish tentacle fluttered past Shin-yon's tail. She panicked and ended up flattening against the ceiling. "If you wouldn't mind checking," she called. The chef didn't care a jot that a customer was attached to the ceiling of his restaurant. He yanked out the booking slab. "Uh-huh," he said. "Conch with a full view, upholstered with super soft moss. Dawn blush, to be specific. The music, to be decided." "She's changed her mind about a few things," said Shin-yon, floating downwards. "She thinks Dawn blush, the pink, is boring. So she's asked, can you do orange, specifically fiery sunset, to match her tail, which on this occasion will be, the vermilion one. And as far as music goes, the chef stared. He did not like customers. They interfered with the general day-to-day running of things. She absolutely wants absolutely something pleasant and, frothy. Yes, that was the word, frothy. Frothy, said the fish. His cheeks were puffing up. Shin-yon hoped they wouldn't pop. They looked like they might. Yes, she said. Not that gallopy stuff you played last time, if you get what I mean. If I remember correctly, said the chef. She got that last time because she had specifically asked for something upbeat, something hoofy for Derby Day. Her exact words, hoofy. It was a teensy bit too hoofy, said Shin-yon. She had heartburn for days afterwards, and then what? And then she, that's it, nothing else. Shin-yon stopped herself just in time, having been told that never, under any circumstances, to mention to anyone, living or dead, about the loud whinnying noises that had set in after the heartburn, and which had only disappeared after 3 expensive, secretive house calls from Mergirl, the herbalist. That's all, said Shin-yon again. She pulled a slab out of her purse and drew a line through the item. Check restaurant booking. I'll be off. Things to do. Still with a smile on her face, she swung around and made her exit, speeding through the sculptured archway that marked the grand entrance to Crevice du Jour. One more thing ticked off the list. Yoink! Rush! Rush! It was getting brighter. Getting brighter meant that something was changing. Ow, 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 ow. The mermaid rubbed her head and looked up. She'd bumped into an enormous chandelier that was hanging above her. It swung from side to side, making creaky noises. The chandelier was dripping with crystals that twinkled and shone from the polished arms, scattering a spectacular, prismatic light far and wide. She couldn't hoist the throne any further. For a start, the chandelier blocked her way, and secondly, there was an ornate, aqua-tinted mirror beside her that was altogether too interesting to ignore. Just as she was about to abandon the throne and swim over to the mirror, the water started to ruffle, and she could hear babbling. She peered into the blue and watched the shapeless noise turn into a fleet of fast-swimming mermaids. Over each mermaid's shoulder hung a handbag, the same as the one she was wearing. And poking out of each handbag was the face at one end and the seashell tail at the other. Her heart skipped a beat. Of a merdog like hers. Hey, over here. Hello, I'm Princess. Princess. They didn't turn to look at her. One by one, they passed the chandelier, snatched a crystal, and plunged head first through the mirror. She was shocked. Not only had they vandalized the chandelier, my chandelier, she thought, but they hadn't even stopped to say hello. Didn't they recognize royalty when they saw it? She reached up and tore the petalled cap off her head. The crown was obviously not doing it for her. Green, straggly tresses drifted around her face. For a brief moment she couldn't see anything. And it was in that moment that she heard a voice. Are you coming? She parted the mess of hair and saw the face of a mermaid. Younger than the others, she had unblinking golden eyes. Cute dog you've got there. Thanks. His name's Isky. The golden-eyed mermaid furrowed her brow. Well, Isky's a bit ski-whiffy, isn't he? Yes, his wings are sticking out at odd angles. But quite frankly, he's all I've got, skew-whiffy or not. He's tired. He's been playing fetch. The mermaid pursed her lips. Look, we need to hurry up. Otherwise, we'll miss the first race. And don't forget your shampoo, she added. You look like you've got drenched by a squid. The mermaid reached up and plucked a crystal from the chandelier. It was a small bottle filled with gleaming coral-coloured liquid. Here, said the mermaid with the gold eyes. Lather, rinse, and repeat. She smiled and plucked another crystal for herself. You'll be sorted in no time. And she disappeared through the mirror. Was it a mirror or a door? What race was she about to miss? Who was staring at her? And what had happened to her hair? What's the point of a door if you don't go through it? She was too frightened to move. A nip on her neck jolted her into action. Ow! Naughty puppy! That hurt! Holding Isky in one hand and clutching the crystal bottle in the other, she pushed off from the throne and propelled herself headfirst into the mirror. From far away, an elegant interlocking system of winches, pulleys, and carabiners wound down. The temporal throne of happen chance, true to its name, fizzed out. Her head hurt from bumping into what looked like an assortment of brooms. She had very little space to move, and Isky's tail was thrashing from side to side across her face. Something was wrong, she thought. There is no magnificent pathway, no friends, and not a single syllable of gossip. She scuffled around. The dog slipped off her shoulders and became wedged into a bucket. She grabbed his tail and pulled. Isky did not like his tail being pulled, and he yelped. Then the door opened, and an arm reached in and grabbed them both, the mermaid and the bucket with Isky sticking out of it. She tugged herself free and swung back around. In front of her were two lanky goby fish, wearing disposable aprons. You take the bucket with a polishing cloth, and I'll take them up, said the first goby fish to the other in a posh voice. I'm not a mop, she said, glaring as she grabbed the bucket back. And this isn't a polishing cloth. If you're not a mop, said the first Goby, looking at her in the same way that one might look at a distasteful greasy residue, then what are you doing upside down in our cleaning cupboard? I took a chance, she said crossly, and it hasn't worked out. I'm obviously not where I'm meant to be. You're in the bathroom at Crevice du jour, said the small fish. After hours, that is. And you are Pongy. I'll have to call security. There was a faint spss as the larger Goby pointed a spray can of heavy-duty sanitizer in her direction, squeezing the nozzle. Clutching the bucket, she swam through a large room set out with carved power benches and swinging hammocks lined with coloured moss. She continued at full speed out through the entrance of Crevice du jour and soared upwards, higher and higher, finally coming to a rest on a wave of pure blue iridescence, to gaze in wonder at a magnificent road in a sparkling undersea town, a town that spread out before her in all directions, a town filled to the brim and overflowing with rowdy noises and activities. The road was made entirely of mother-of-pearl, glistening tiles, each one placed on top of a smooth flowing current, jostled melodiously in a long, perfect wave. On either side of the pearl promenade were black caverns with rainbow limpets clustered around the entrances, and spilling in and out of them a busy assortment of strange and exotic merfolk. She flicked her tail fins. It was all so much better than she'd imagined. She saw the mermaids she had followed through the mirror, their mer-dogs all higgledy-piggledy, splashing around, tinkling their seashell tails. Maybe I'll give them a second chance, she thought. She pulled Esky out of the bucket and plunged into the bridging current that would carry her across the promenade. After so long alone, she couldn't wait. It's all working out so perfectly. The mermaids were tying leashes around their mer-dogs. She felt the water swirl around her face. It had been a long time since she had swum the way mermaids love to swim. She stretched out her arms, closed her eyes, and surged forwards. For sheer delight, she flipped up to a vertical position and spiraled faster and faster until she was dizzy. It felt amazing. It felt refreshing. It felt like home. Almost she opened her eyes. Wait, where are they? She had crossed the promenade. But the mermaids, my friends, had gone and taken their gossip with them. She swam down to the road paved with mother-of-pearl and parked herself on the curb, with Esky at her side. Now what? What now? As if in answer to her question, the bustle of the street gave way to a great hush. Sea creatures everywhere were darting to one side or the other, creating a pathway, and sweeping down the middle of this pathway came the most majestic mermaid. She was larger than everyone else, and she had a vermilion tail that looked as if it had been chiselled out of an upward sunset. On either side of her head were two glowing braids that swept down and trailed behind her. The plaits swirled and twisted, creating a frenzy of whirlpools. Around the edge of the vermilion tail were hundreds of red-eyed crabs, each one linked with a golden chain to the outer fins. As the Grand Mermaid approached, they busied themselves spreading out the ruffles of the fins, so as to display them to their best advantage. A large crab perched on the mermaid's shoulder, as if it was performing the function of a necklace. He scuttled regularly from shoulder to shoulder. Perdita, 6th of the 7 stellar mermaids, he announced at last, leaping down to balance on the Grand Mermaid's wrist. Crab! The Grand Mermaid tapped her shoulder, and the crab leapt up, not taking his eyes off her. The voice, How marvellous to see you, dearest. Ringlet from the Kelplands, isn't it? Was deep, Saturnian, low, almost unmermaid-like. It sent an oscillation through the water. As she spoke, droplets of ice-blue spit speckled the water in front of her mouth. Sweetie pie winks, we've been inconsolable. We thought you were lost forever. A single steely teardrop was squeezing itself out of the corner of her eye. So did I, said Ringlet, at last. My name is Ringlet. I was missing, but now I'm found. And maybe you were, by the looksies of you. Perdita laughed. It sounded like the gurgle of a plug at the bottom of the bathtub. The crab scuttled across Perdita's cheek and scraped away the teardrop with a single pincer. But be reassured, poor sweetie winkles, that despite the crushing immensity of my schedule, a schedule that will topple anyone not possessing my extraordinary stamina, that not only have I tirelessly searched the oceans to find you, but I also have, for you, a wonderful gift. A present? Said Ringlet. For you, my dearest kins, the most perfect of steeds for this year's Derby Day. Wait, what? Perdita meshed her fingers together and squeezed them tightly. Not an easy task either. Given the circumstances, she had long fingernails painted 5 different shades of electric blue. You're lost for words, aren't you, my sea cucumber? I'm lost all right. I need a shampoo, something to eat, and someone who speaks in short sentences. A horse that is nibbling at its leash to take you to... She stopped. But why spoil the lovely surprise? Follow me, darlinka. Time is of the essence. No time to lose. Time, in fact, is a game. Who said that? Me, or my old friend, Heraclitus. Me, I believe. She chortled, then leaned forwards. As if, Ringlet thought. It was a secret just between the two of them. Yes, time is a game, and games, sweetie pie winks, must be played. Until someone wins, said Ringlet brightly. I like games. A shadow passed over Perdita's face. Exactly right, my little sea slug, she said. Games, said the large crab, as he ran across to the other shoulder and rasped his claws. Games, guns, said hundreds of crabs as Perdita, 6th of the 7 stellar mermaids, turned, flinging out her tail to depart in a flurry of fins and crab feet. Ringlet felt a small sense of relief as she scurried to keep up. Her thoughts were trying to keep up too. She's a bit of a yakker, but she is a stellar mermaid. A real-life stellar mermaid. And she knows who I am. I'm Ringlet. Ringlet from the Kelplands. Not a princess after all, but never mind. She's going to help me find a horse for me. Unexpected, but useful in games. That could be fun. I wonder what she's got in mind. The oceans may have paused, but our adventure is far from over. Join Libby next Saturday at 9:30 a.m. as we continue exploring Ringlet and the Day the Ocean Stopped, by Felicity Williams, published by Ahoy, and imprint of the Cuba Press. Keep your curiosity alive and your hearts open, because the magic, mystery and wonder of the sea are waiting for us in the next chapter on Spin Me a Tale.